Hello! Happy December! Today I wanted to talk about green flags in a guy. Oh, I'm wearing green. I didn't even plan that. If you're new here, I'm Sharon. I've been married twice, which is not ideal, but that's just kind of how things worked out. But something that did come out of that is just me wanting young women to be in really healthy marriages. I made a video about what happened in my first marriage. It's this one. And just for context, I'm speaking to women who are Christian who want to marry Christian men. So if that's not you, then some of this stuff might not be relevant, but hopefully still helpful. So I made a video before about red flags that you might want to look out for when you're dating somebody or if you're considering marrying somebody. And for this video, I wanted to talk about green flags. Huge disclaimer because this is the internet and I just feel like people twist things all the time. But when I say that these are green flags, I don't mean that if you don't see these green flags, then it is a red flag. Does that make sense? So if somebody doesn't have some of these things, that doesn't mean that they have red flags and that you shouldn't marry them. And also, I would never tell you who to marry. Trust your gut. I think that's like my whole thing on this channel is that I want women to really trust themselves and to know themselves and make good decisions and just do their part in entering really good, healthy marriages. So with that said, these are some green flags that I think if you do notice these in some guys, it's a really good thing. Okay, I'll just kind of pose these in the form of questions. So the first question I might ask is, how does he respond when you confront him with something that he did wrong? Is he defensive about it? Is it going to turn into a whole thing? Does he get mean and nasty? Are you walking on eggshells? Does it take a lot for you to work up the courage to kind of tell him that he did something wrong or that he hurt your feelings? Or maybe he said something in a way that you didn't like and you just want to talk to him about it, but it's like, I don't know, like it's not like a safe relationship for you to be able to do that. Or is he accepting of what you're sharing with him, and even if it doesn't feel good for him like right away, because obviously no one really likes being confronted with something they did wrong, is he able to just take a moment to be humble and to think like, oh, maybe I could have done something differently in this situation, or let's try to have a good conversation about it and see where she's coming from. I feel like I always give these types of disclaimers even within the different points, but I'm not telling you to date a doormat that just apologizes for everything all the time. You get to do whatever you want, you get to confront them whenever you want, and they just have to apologize all the time. But truly, if there's something to discuss and there's a problem, what is that conversation like? Is it a safe relationship for you to be able to bring that up and have good conversations and you feel comfortable doing that? I think a kind and humble and non-defensive man is so hot. My definition of hot has certainly changed over the years. But I think when a man is able to say, I'm sorry, I can see where you're coming from. I didn't mean it that way, but I'm sorry that I hurt your feelings. Almost as far as like, do you forgive me? It's just like, it just softens your heart so much. Like, I feel like you don't even care about the thing you were mad about before. You're like, yes, I forgive you because you're just so nice about it. I just want it to be heard. I just want it to be validated. And I feel like a lot of girls are kind of like that. I won't speak for all girls, but obviously, it also depends on the gravity of the situation. But if it's like, hey, I didn't like what you said the other day, I just wanted to tell you. And maybe sometimes they're not even expecting an apology. But if their attitude towards you is just so kind and humble and non-defensive, I think that's a huge green flag. Okay, the next one is, what are his friendships like? Does he even have friends? Does he have good guy friends? I think if a guy has good guy friends, and then if we take it one step further, although maybe this should be first before the guy friend thing, I don't know, whichever way you want to see it. If they have a good guy mentor, that's even better. I think if they have good guy friends and a good guy mentor, that's a huge green flag. These are the guys that are going to speak truth into his life, that are going to challenge him, process things with him. If they are really good friends and they have this deep friendship, they're probably having deep conversations. They're probably actually sharing about their emotions. It's okay, I think, to share about their relationships, as long as they're just not like trash talking their girlfriends or their wives or whatever. And that goes for the other side too. We should not be ever trash talking our husbands or our boyfriends. But they have people that can kind of be their sounding board and just process things with them. I met with a viewer the other day who asked me, do guys have good guy friends? Like, is that a thing? And I was like, yes, that's a thing. But I know that it's rare. So I think if your boyfriend or fiance or whatever has really good guy friends that are rooted in Christ, they have really good conversations, they have deep conversations, I think that's a huge green flag. These are also the people that you might do life with after you get married, after you have kids. You're going to keep hanging out with them. You're going to raise your kids together. You're going to spend time together. It's just really nice when you have a community that you're just aligned in values with. I definitely have people like that in my life, and I'm so thankful for them. It's just one less thing that you have to worry about. What your friends are going to teach your kids. Trusting your friends with your kids. Just knowing that there are people around you who have the same values as you, who are going to speak godly truth into your children's lives. And I think that starts with who you marry and who you surrounded yourself with before you got married. Also, like if you have problems in your marriage in the future, which you probably will, because every marriage has problems, who are you going to turn to? Who is your husband going to turn to seek wisdom and to get advice from? If your husband doesn't have anyone to talk to, like if they actually don't have any friends and they don't have anyone to talk to, the only person that they're listening to is themselves. And you and I both know that sometimes when you're in a conflict, you just need another opinion. You need someone to tell you, hey, I know you, I love you, this is what you need to hear. And I think that's something that I have in my girlfriends as well, that we can challenge each other during fights we have with our significant others. We can tell each other, like, I think you're actually the one in the wrong. And I think that's a really cool thing that we can do for each other that I feel like a lot of guys don't have. Maybe everyone watching right now who's a guy or is dating somebody has really great guy friends, and you're like, Sharon, this is a normal thing, then great. But I think if this is something that your boyfriend has, great guy friends, great guy mentor, brothers in Christ, huge green flag. Another green flag is how well does he take care of himself? I'm talking physically, nutritionally, mental health wise, just all the things that he needs to be a well-balanced man. I think guys who take really good care of themselves, it's a huge green flag because it takes a level of awareness for you to know what you need. If you're not feeling great physically, you know that something needs to change. Like maybe you need to eat differently or you need to start working out. I think that also shows discipline when they do that, when they work out consistently, even if they're busy or even if they don't feel like it. Like these are all things that I think translate into what kind of husband they'll be, what kind of father they'll be. Mental health wise, like guys who go to therapy and who know that they need therapy, also very hot. Again, that takes a level of awareness, of self-awareness to know that something's wrong. I need to process things. I have things floating around in my heart, in my head, things from my past, trauma that I've been through that I really need to work through so that I can be a better partner for you. That's really attractive to me. Is that just me? I think that's another thing that will translate into what kind of husband he'll be, what kind of father he'll be, to make sure that he's okay and taking care of himself so that he doesn't put his stuff onto you or your kids. I think it also takes like a level of humility to say, I need help. I need to do something different. And then asking you for help. Like if he doesn't know how to find a therapist and asking you to help him. I don't know, whatever. Figuring that kind of stuff out. I just think that is just such a green flag when someone says, I need help. I need to change something about myself. I need to take better care of myself. Rather than just kind of existing in this, I don't want to call it a pity party because I don't want to dismiss the people who are like going through a really hard time, but basically just taking ownership over your own self and doing something about that. I think that's a huge green flag. Kind of along with that, another thing is what kind of spiritual leader is he and what kind of spiritual discipline does he have? If you end up getting married to this person, you will definitely go through ups and downs spiritually. Obviously, we go through deserts, we go through dry seasons spiritually, and you might have to just kind of cover for him or be the one to lead and to kind of lift him up again and to be the one to say, hey, let's keep trying, let's keep fighting the fight, let's keep being faithful. And that is going to happen in your relationship and in your marriage. But in general, is he the one that takes the lead on your spiritual disciplines as a couple? Or are you the one who's always having to drag him to church or drag him to read his Bible? Or anytime you suggest something spiritual, like to do as a couple or to grow together as a couple in Christ, is there resistance? And is it like pulling teeth to get him to do that? That's going to get really old if you get married. I do think that biblically and even just personally from what I've seen, it is just so much better when the guy is the spiritual leader in the relationship in general. Again, I'm not talking about different seasons of life. I'm not talking about he has to be on his A game like all the time and never go into a slump spiritually or ever. And I'm not dismissing all of that stuff. But if a guy takes the lead spiritually, I think that's a huge green flag. You have strengths. You're going to contribute things to the relationship that he's not going to contribute. And it's going to be well balanced. But spiritually, I think it's a huge green flag when they take ownership of not only their spiritual life, but also of the families. This kind of goes back to my thing about the guy friends and the mentors. Like, this is what he's going to fall back on when you guys are going through hard times or when he doesn't know what to do, what decision to make. Hopefully his spiritual leadership will translate into turning to the word and turning to prayer and asking God for wisdom when figuring that kind of stuff out, instead of just doing what he thinks is right and potentially steering your family away from the word or away from what God says is right. I think if you start off a relationship where you are the primary spiritual leader of the relationship, it can get really hard for you as the girl. I've done that. And not even just because you are the girl, but just if you are not aligned. Like if either of you are not aligned, like it would be hard for him too if you were not on the same page spiritually too. I've been in both types of relationships and it was just really hard. And I think it limits how much you can grow in your spiritual life and in your faith. And it doesn't have to be that way, you know? So this is a big one. If he takes care of himself spiritually and leads your relationship spiritually, huge green flag. Another one is reliability. I don't think he has to make a lot of money. He doesn't have to be like this super ambitious, career-oriented dude, but is he reliable? Is he faithful in the things that he does every day? When you guys are dating, especially if you're younger, like if you're in your early 20s or something, do you have to worry that he's gonna go to work on time or if he's gonna study hard? If he is very reliable and you don't have to occupy your mind with making sure that he's doing what he needs to do, I would say that's a green flag. And that should be obvious. That should be like a baseline for adult behavior, that everyone's just taking care of themselves and doing what they need to do. But I don't think that's always the case, especially if you're younger. Not because young people are less capable, but you're just still kind of figuring stuff out. So again, trust yourself, know your boyfriend. If you feel like this is just kind of him figuring stuff out, but he's still reliable, like you're still not worried about him, then great. But if it's like he's lazy and you are worried about it and you don't think he's reliable, that might make it quite difficult for you later when there are real responsibilities on the table, mortgage, rent, taking care of the kids, whatever. I personally think it's a huge green flag when a guy takes initiative, he's proactive about the things he needs to do, he's thinking for the future, he's making sure that he is doing what he needs to do to be the best man of the house that he can be. I would say that's a big green flag, especially if you guys are younger. The last question that you might ask is, how does he view family? I know there are great guys out there who come from challenging families and didn't have the best childhood growing up, to be honest. Maybe their parents weren't there for them. They had traumatic experiences in their childhood. They have a lot of anxiety because of stuff like that. But how do they see family? Even amidst all of that, I think if somebody went through a hard time and they still value family so much, I think that's a huge green flag. What is their relationship like with their dad? I think that's a big one that we don't talk about that much, and we don't really observe that one as much. If they didn't have a dad or their dad is horrible to them, then what can they do? That's out of their control. But if they have a great relationship with their dad and or they really respect their dad and or their dad is a huge positive influence in their life, I think that's a huge green flag. Especially if you're Asian, maybe your boyfriend or fiance didn't grow up like having deep conversations with their dad. But I think it's just kind of how they see their dad and what kind of presence their dad had in their life. If he was always out working or he wasn't physically present, how does your boyfriend still see his dad? Is it a good thing or are there issues? And this kind of goes back to the whole mental health thing. If there are issues with his dad, and I'll get off the dad thing, if there are issues with his family, with either of his parents or just with his family in general, what is he doing to take care of that? Is he figuring that out? Or does he have this perception of family that's really negative and just something he's going to bring into your marriage and he's not willing to work on it? I think if your man really values family and has a positive perception of family and is really motivated to treat his family well in whatever way, financially, emotionally, relationally, whatever, I think that's a huge green flag. This is the person that you're going to create a family with. You're probably going to see each other's parents. They're going to be your in-laws. They're going to have influence over your children's lives. What kind of perspective of family are you bringing into your marriage? So yeah, those are kind of my thoughts for this video. There's a lot we could talk about. Again, there are so many things that are out of our control. And I think for your man, think about how he handles those things, how he responds to those things. I think that just says a lot on his character and what he's going to be like when you guys go through hard times in your potential future marriage. Okay, let me know if there's any huge green flags that I missed that you think are really important to think about. Put them in the comments down below. Otherwise, thanks for watching and let me know if you have any questions. I want you to be in amazing, healthy marriages. Okay, subscribe if you want, and I'll see you in the next one.